National grid standards from 30 years ago are much different than they are today.
They look at it, they say, rip this out, replace all of it. It has to be replaced. It takes 2 or 3 years to get all these buildings revitalized.
You don't just come on and flip a switch. You can go anywhere in Western New York, whether you go up to Niagara Falls or downtown Buffalo, and there's just remnants of yesteryear's old industrial buildings that in a lot of cases are deteriorating. They're from when this area was, an industrial empire, if you will, all right? And today it's much different. But what we're seeing, right, is we're seeing a push now for people to convert that space to data centers, right?
Yeah, the fact is that there's so much power available in Western New York because of all the previous industrial manufacturing facilities. And these buildings that are laying there, some of them have been empty for years, so they get sold for nothing. So these data people buy them, and then they convert them into data centers. And of course, that's where we come into play. I mean, that's it. The massive equipment in there. First of all, the equipment is generally it's not acceptable with the utility company anymore. So they go on site, they look at it, they say, rip this out, replace all of it. It has to be replaced to come up to the utility company's standards today, especially if the power has been turned off to those places. They just tell them, replace everything. So that's the business that we're in.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a push to take that those old industrial facilities and modernize them. And the reason being is exactly what you said. It's the access to the power, right? It's ready to go. It's not easy, whether upstate New York or anywhere across the country, if you don't currently have access to power, if you're not currently connected to the grid, that is not something that happens overnight, right? So that's why we're seeing a push for these data center developers to come into Western New York, upstate New York, where there's access to power that is not being used right now. But you don't just come on and flip a switch. You don't move in, flip a switch, turn the lights on. There's a lot of modernization that needs to be done. There's a lot of integrating conversations that need to be had with utility companies to go forward with this. And that's where we come in. We can help with the facilitating that relationship with the utility company. We work with a lot of the local electrical engineers up here. So if a data center developer comes in and they're working with somebody that we're familiar with, we can pick right up and help facilitate the speed of that project and getting it done. And what we're selling them is we're selling them transformers, switchgear, and UPS systems. Every data center that I could think of needs all three of those things, right? And so that's what we're doing.
And there's just a massive amount of these old buildings around to be converted.
A lot of times you've got folks coming in who they might not fully understand like what it takes to revitalize an old facility. They might not understand what it's going to take to work with the utility company to get this particular facility back up to modern specifications. Yep. And so whether it's switchgear or transformers, but just to talk about the switchgear for a minute, again, if you're going to tie into national grid standards from 30 years ago are much different than they are today, right? So we've got to make sure that when we're going to modernize, we're going to meet today's standards, right? So that might mean ensuring that there's barriered off cable entry points, right. A visible disconnect if it's a metal enclosed switchgear, right? Right. Yeah. What are some other things that we have to make sure that we're doing in all of this equipment?
I mean, we got to make sure that the equipment, if it's got a main circuit breaker on it or it's got a main switch, it's got to be properly protected. It has to have setting files put in proper. The utility company doesn't really care about the building we're feeding. They don't care what happens in that building. What they don't want to happen is something to go back upstream and affect all these other customers. And that's what happens if the piece of gear that the utility company is feeding is not properly set up. It doesn't have the right size fuse, doesn't have the right settings in the breakers, and there's a failure in that piece of gear, and it goes back up, all the other customers are affected that are on that line. So that's a big problem. And that's, people don't understand that. People come in, like you say, from out of town, they don't understand that.
Well,
they don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, and another piece of that is not just the technical piece, right? It's the knowledge of where to go, what manufacturers, what vendors can be trusted, right? Again, we talked about it earlier, but particularly in a data center environment, they're trying to turn that data center on as soon as possible. As soon as they turn the power on, they're going to start making money. So there's an incredible push, and there's a very condensed schedule to get a data center turned on. And if you partner with the wrong switchgear manufacturer or the wrong transformer manufacturer, your project will be delayed. So not only is it the technical knowledge, right, but it's also the vendor relationships that we have that help us bring value to the customer to ensure that we're going to select people that build quality equipment and they deliver it on time. We've actually been to a couple of board meetings where the people in the town, they're questioning, bringing a certain facility back online and converting it to a data center. There's concerns around it, and maybe some of them are justified, but yeah, there are definitely a lot of concerns that come from the local community. There's pushback, but on the flip side, what I will say is that these data centers do drive job growth. One of the data center projects that's going on in Western New York right now is the second largest construction project in Western New York. And not only is it creating jobs for construction, but it's also going to create permanent jobs for the people in that area.
And then the other thing is, too, the tax dollars that come in. So these towns and these cities, they want these people to come in. They want us to supply them and get that up because they have tax dollars coming in. They got empty fields, they got empty buildings. They don't make any money on an empty building, okay? But if it's a data center, they're making tax dollars.
It's truly revitalizing some of these small towns. It really is. I mean, you've got situations where, you might have an old facility, you might have an old power generating facility that's basically been shut down. It's not been operating, and the people that worked at that facility, in some cases for generations, those people have been laid off. They've been without work. Now these data centers are hiring them again to come back and be part of their operations team, be part of their construction team, and it's bringing jobs back to the community, and it's revitalizing these areas, and it's even driving up housing values.
Here's a problem, okay? You come in, you tear all this old building down, or you gut the building, people get upset. Oh, you got all this trash you're piling up outside. What are you going to do with all that stuff? It's in my backyard. I don't want to look at it. You got to go up and explain. It's all going away. We're taking care of it. Not us, but the general contractor, the owner, he's taking care of it. And what they've done in a lot of areas, they've made these areas look a lot better than they were before.
Well, one thing that we've seen here in upstate New York is that, yes, there is pushback when these data centers are coming online, right? Like you have a building or facility that's been sitting dormant for years, decades. The neighbors, the community, they're used to that. They're used to the status quo, and now we're going to change that, right? We're going to increase traffic. There might be additional noise, and these are legitimate concerns that are coming from the communities. But what we've seen the communities do, and we've seen the data center individuals and developers, we've seen them comply with this, is not only are they creating jobs and bringing these facilities back online, but they're also building out solar fields, and they're creating other renewable sources of power to help offset that, right? And ensuring that there is a ratio of data center building to green space is another thing that we've been seeing become a requirement. In some of these things, when the neighbors and the community see that the developer is going to also create a renewable energy source and ensure that there is going to be a good, healthy ratio between building and green space, that's some of the things that are helping to offset the concerns, right?
Because there's so few places in the country that have the amount of electricity that upstate New York has. I mean, that's it. It's not like you can go You can go over to Ohio, and you know, we did a job up in Niagara Falls a couple of years ago, and the owner came in from Ohio, and I said, we got a plant in Ohio, what are you doing? Why'd you expand that? His power company wasn't interested in selling us any more power, period. End of conversation. Come to Upstate New York, old facility up there, we redid it and reworked the gear and got the utility company to give them the power. The power is available here in the state of Washington. There's about 4 states in the United States that have massive amounts of power. We have either the most or the second most right here in Western New York, available power, period. And their grid, National Grid, is killing themselves to upgrade their systems because this is catching them off guard too. They've had this power sitting there for years and years and years because, you know, the manufacturing kind of went down the tubes here, and all of a sudden, all this power requirement is there, and they're going nuts right now, upgrading their systems so they don't have problems when they start feeding this power to customers.
We're in the Rust Belt, so they're, you know, back in the 70s and maybe even the 80s, there was a lot more manufacturing going on in upstate New York. And so not only is it the available power, but it's the access to the power, right? The infrastructure is already built out. Yes, it needs to be upgraded, but if you go into other parts of the country, the infrastructure is not there. So if a data center wants to drop in the Midwest or down south, they're going to be starting from scratch. They're going to be working with the utility to build a new substation, build a new yard, build new lines. Whereas here in upstate New York, those lines are here and they're available because once upon a time, this was a very industrial area that was building and manufacturing a lot of different equipment that, unfortunately, doesn't happen here anymore. But fortunately for us, the power is obviously still here and the access to the power is still here.
And the people that see this, when they sit back and look at it, they recognize a data center is fine for using power. You know, it's fine. The manufacturing that was here 20 or 30 years ago, downtown Buffalo, I mean, it was screaming ridiculous, all the noise and everything going on, because they have offices, they have manufacturing plants, you know, and nobody really cared. They had people working there, but it wasn't clean use of the power. So this is good. This is good what we have.